I'm not even sure why I'm writing this, but I can't keep it inside anymore. The sheer weight of the betrayal is crushing me, and I have no one to talk to who would possibly understand the depth of this deception. My family, the people who were supposed to be my foundation, have revealed themselves to be nothing more than thieves hiding behind a mask of parental concern. It all came to a head last Sunday at a dinner that was meant to celebrate my brother's engagement. They announced they were giving him and his fiancée the perfect wedding gift to start their new life together. The house I was living in, the house I thought was mine. My first reaction was utter confusion, a mental short circuit where the words didn't compute. I must have misheard them. I looked at my mom, then my dad, expecting them to laugh and correct the misunderstanding, maybe clarify that they were helping him with a down payment on a different place. But there were no smiles. There was only a practiced, almost pitying look on their faces, the kind you give to someone who just doesn't get it yet. My brother, Mark, just sat there, smugly holding his fiancée's hand, refusing to even make eye contact with me. In that silence, the horrible, cold truth began to dawn. The house wasn't a family investment. It was a long con. My savings, my hard work, my future. It was all just a resource they had tapped to secure my brother's happiness. I had poured every last cent I had into that place, believing the story they had sold me about building a future together. For 8 years, I had been paying into a dream that was never mine to begin with. The words finally came out, a choked whisper across the dinner table. I asked them what they were talking about, reminding them that it was my money that made the purchase possible. I needed them to say it was all a terrible joke. My father cleared his throat, adopting his familiar tone of paternal disappointment, the one he always used when I questioned his authority. He explained, with a calm that chilled me to the bone, that my contribution was considered rent for all the years I had lived there. He said they had handled the mortgage and the deed was in their names for legal simplicity. They felt this was the fairest way to handle things, as Mark was just starting out and needed the stability more than I did. He said it with such conviction, as if he were explaining a simple math problem, completely ignoring the financial devastation he was announcing. My mother chimed in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. She said they knew I was the responsible one, the one who could land on their feet. They were counting on my strength and independence to understand their decision. It was a classic move, framing their favoritism as a compliment to me. For my entire life, my reliability was used as an excuse to neglect my needs, while Mark's irresponsibility was a constant crisis that required all of their financial and emotional resources. This time, however, they weren't just giving him a handout, they were taking my entire net worth to do it. The idea for the house came up about 8 years ago. I was in my late 20s, with a decent job and a substantial amount of money saved up. I was proud of it, having worked since I was a teenager and lived frugally to build that nest egg. My parents approached me with a proposition. They had found a perfect house, but the bank required a larger down payment than they could manage at the time. They suggested we pool our resources. I would provide the bulk of the down payment from my savings, and we would own the house together as a family asset. They painted such a convincing picture of security and long-term investment. They talked about the housing market, how it was a surefire way to grow my money instead of letting it sit in a low-interest savings account. They promised that my name would be on the deed, that I would be building equity, and that it was a home for all of us. I was hesitant at first, as the amount they needed was essentially my entire life savings. The thought of handing over that much control was terrifying, but they were my parents. I was raised to believe that family always had your best interests at heart. My father sat me down and drew diagrams on a napkin, showing how property values would appreciate over time. He called it the smartest move I could possibly make. My mother appealed to my emotions, talking about having a family home where we could all gather for holidays, a place of stability for generations to come. They leveraged every ounce of trust and love I had for them. They knew I craved that sense of belonging and family unity, and they used it as a tool to get what they wanted for my brother, even back then. I see that now. Mark, of course, was never part of this conversation. He was in his early 20s, drifting between part-time jobs and grand, unfunded ideas for startups. He contributed nothing to the household and certainly had no savings to speak of. While I was carefully budgeting and working overtime, he was living a carefree life funded by my parents. They paid his car insurance, his phone bill, and gave him a generous allowance, all while telling me how proud they were of my independence. The irony is so thick it suffocates me when I think about it now. So after weeks of their persistent, gentle pressure, I agreed. I went to the bank and withdrew nearly $80,000, the sum of a decade of my life's work. I remember the bank teller giving me a concerned look as I initiated the wire transfer to my father's account. I just smiled, filled with a naive sense of pride. I felt so adult, so responsible, making this huge investment, not just for myself, but for my family. It felt like I was finally cementing my place as a valued contributor, not just the self-sufficient son they never had to worry about. When it came time to sign the closing documents, my parents told me it would be better if only their names were on the initial deed. They had a convoluted excuse about qualifying for a better mortgage rate because of their credit history and age. They promised with solemn faces and hands on their hearts that we would go to a lawyer and add my name to the title through a quitclaim deed just a few months later, once everything was settled. They said it was just a temporary formality to streamline the process. I didn't question it. Why would I? Those few months turned into a year, and every time I brought it up, there was another excuse. The timing wasn't right, the lawyer was busy, or they had some unexpected expenses and couldn't afford the legal fees at the moment. It was always a gentle deferral, a promise that it was still the plan, just not right now. They made me feel petty and impatient for even asking, as if I were questioning their integrity. So eventually, I stopped asking. I settled into life in the house, trusting that they would honor their word when the time was right. I poured more than just the down payment into that house. Over the years, I personally paid for significant upgrades, believing I was increasing the value of my own asset. I funded a complete kitchen remodel, installed a new HVAC system when the old one failed, and spent thousands on landscaping the backyard. Each project was a source of pride. I was building a home. My parents were happy to let me, praising my good taste and my work ethic, all while knowing that I was effectively renovating a property that they intended to give to my brother. I also contributed to the monthly bills, paying a significant amount that we all agreed was my share of the mortgage and utilities. In my mind, every payment was a brick in my wall of financial security. I calculated the equity I was building, I watched the local market values rise, and I felt secure. I sacrificed other things for it. I put off traveling, I drove an old car, and I rarely bought things for myself, all because I was channeling my resources into what I believed was my primary investment. I was playing the long game while they were playing me. Mark's presence in the house was always that of a privileged guest. He'd come and go as he pleased, bringing his friends over for parties, never cleaning up after himself. He treated the place like a hotel that I was maintaining for his convenience. When I'd complain to my parents, they would tell me to be more understanding. They'd say Mark was just finding himself and that I should be more supportive. They never once asked him to contribute, to help with repairs, or to respect the fact that I was paying for the majority of the upkeep. He seemed to have an innate understanding that the house was somehow more his than mine, even back then. He would talk about what he would change, what color he would paint the living room, or how he'd turn the garage into a music studio. I always dismissed it as him just daydreaming, the kind of idle talk of someone with no real stake in the property. Now I see it for what it was. He was in on it. He knew on some level that he was the designated heir to my life's work. His entitlement wasn't just a personality flaw, it was a reflection of the family's secret plan. The fiancée, a woman I've only met a handful of times, was sitting there at the dinner table beaming, talking about how generous my parents were. She gushed about how she couldn't wait to move in and start their lives in such a beautiful home. I felt a wave of nausea. This stranger was being handed the keys to my financial future, a future built on my sweat and sacrifice. I looked at her, then at my brother, and I finally saw them clearly. They were partners in this grand theft, whether she was aware of the full backstory or not. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I couldn't breathe the air in that room anymore. I told them that this wasn't happening, that the house was half mine, legally or not. I recounted every single financial contribution, from the initial down payment to the recent water heater I had replaced just last month. I laid it all out, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and desperation. I needed them to acknowledge the truth, to show even a sliver of shame for what they were doing. Instead, my father's face hardened. He accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. He said I was trying to ruin my brother's happy announcement and make it all about myself. He raised his voice, claiming they had given me a roof over my head for 8 years at a fraction of what I would have paid in rent elsewhere, and that I should be thankful for their generosity. He completely twisted the narrative, painting me as a spoiled child throwing a tantrum because I wasn't getting my way, and not as a victim of a calculated financial swindle. My mother started to cry, which was her go-to tactic whenever she needed to end a conflict and paint herself as the victim. She sobbed about how I was tearing the family apart, how all they ever wanted was for both their sons to be happy. She couldn't understand why I had to be so difficult and materialistic. It was a masterclass in emotional manipulation, designed to make me feel guilty and cruel for simply demanding what I was owed. The entire family dynamic, I realized, was built on this foundation of lies and emotional blackmail. Mark finally spoke up, but not to defend me. He told me to stop upsetting our mother. He said I was being dramatic and that I should just be happy for him. There was no acknowledgement of my contribution, no gratitude, no empathy. He looked at me with a coldness that I had never seen before. It was the look of someone who had won a game they knew was rigged from the start. He was the golden child, and he had just been handed the grand prize, a prize that I had paid for. That's when I knew it was over. There was no reasoning with them. They had their story, and they were sticking to it. They had rewritten history to suit their narrative, and in their version, I was not a partner who had been betrayed, but a tenant who had overstayed his welcome. The legal documents were in their name. My bank statements showing the transfer would mean nothing without a signed contract, which I was too foolish and trusting to demand at the time. They had me, and they knew it. I walked out of that house, the house I had poured my soul into, and I didn't look back. I spent that night in a cheap motel, the sterile, impersonal room, feeling more like a home than the place I had just left. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every promise, every red flag I had ignored over the past 8 years. Each memory was a fresh stab of betrayal. The trust I had in my parents, a core belief I had held my entire life, had been completely and irrevocably shattered. The next day, I started the process of disentangling my life from theirs. I blocked their numbers. I started looking for a new place to live, a small apartment that I could barely afford, now that I was starting from scratch. The financial setback is devastating. At an age where my friends are buying their own homes and building families, I have been reset to zero. My savings are gone, and the prime years of my earning potential were spent investing in a lie. The hole they have put me in feels impossibly deep. It's the psychological impact, though, that is the hardest to bear. It's the realization that my relationship with my family was entirely conditional. My worth to them was tied to my utility. I was the responsible son, the reliable financial backup plan, the one who could be counted on to sacrifice for the good of the family, which always, in the end, meant for the good of my brother. My love and trust were commodities they exploited for their own ends. I wonder how long they had this planned. Was it the goal from the very beginning when they first pitched the idea of the house? Or did the plan evolve over time as they saw how willing I was to contribute without demanding legal protections? It's a question that haunts me. The idea that my own parents could orchestrate such a long-term, calculated deception against their own child is a concept so monstrous that my mind can barely comprehend it. It feels like something out of a movie, not my own quiet suburban life. They have tried to reach out, of course. My mother has left tearful voicemails begging me to come home so we can talk things through. She says this is all a misunderstanding. My father sent a single terse email telling me to stop being childish and that my belongings would be put in storage if I didn't come to collect them. There is no apology, no remorse, no acknowledgement of the money they have effectively stolen from me. Their attempts at contact are just further attempts at control. My brother has been silent. I imagine he is too busy planning his wedding and his future in his new free house to be bothered with the brother whose financial ruin made it all possible. He has what he has always wanted, a life without consequence, funded by the efforts of others. My parents have succeeded in their ultimate goal. They have ensured that their favored son is set for life, and the cost was simply their other son's future. It was a price they were clearly more than willing to pay. I've had to tell my boss that I'm going through some personal family issues, which is why my performance has dipped. How do you even begin to explain this to someone? Sorry, I'm distracted. My parents just stole my life savings to give my brother a house. People would look at you like you're insane. They wouldn't believe it. I barely believe it myself. It's a betrayal so profound that it sounds like fiction, a plot twist in a story you'd never expect to be your own reality. The hardest part is mourning the family I thought I had. I'm grieving for the parents I believed were loving and fair, and the brother I thought, deep down, cared about me. That family never actually existed. It was an illusion, and I was the only one who couldn't see it. I was so blinded by my desire for their approval and love that I made myself an easy target. My trust was the weapon they used against me, and they wielded it with devastating precision. I'm sharing this anonymously on the internet because I feel so utterly alone. Have any of you ever experienced something like this? How do you recover from a financial blow that is so deeply intertwined with emotional betrayal? It feels like all the rules of the world have been turned upside down. The people who were supposed to protect me have been the ones who have hurt me the most, and they did it with a smile on their faces, convinced of their own righteousness. I've consulted with a lawyer just to explore my options. He was blunt. Without a written contract or my name on the deed, the legal battle would be incredibly difficult and expensive. He said I could try to sue them in civil court for the $80,000, but it would be a he said, she said situation, and my parents would likely lie under oath. The chances of winning are slim, and the process would drag out for years, costing me even more money that I no longer have. It feels like a hopeless situation. The idea of suing them is also emotionally fraught. Part of me, a small wounded child part of me, still flinches at the thought of taking my own parents to court. It feels like a final, irreversible severing of a bond that is already broken. But then the anger rises up, and I think about the injustice of it all. They are counting on me to be too hurt and too poor to fight back. They are banking on my emotional exhaustion to get away with it completely. The financial loss is one thing, and it's a massive, life-altering thing. But it's the casual cruelty of it that I can't get past. They watched me for 8 years, saw my sacrifices, accepted my money for renovations, and all the while they held this secret. They must have had conversations about it behind my back, reaffirming their plan. The thought of them sitting at their kitchen table, discussing how and when they would break the news, makes me physically ill. It was a conspiracy against me, orchestrated by the two people who brought me into this world. I am trying to focus on the future, on rebuilding. I have my job, and I have my health for the most part. But I feel a deep-seated cynicism growing inside me now. My ability to trust people has been fundamentally damaged. If your own parents can look you in the eye and lie for years, Who can you believe? Every interaction now feels like I'm searching for the angle, the hidden motive. I hate this feeling. I hate the person their actions are turning me into. Sometimes I fantasize about confronting them again, but this time with a calm and cold fury. I would lay out bank statements, receipts for the renovations, and a detailed invoice for my stolen future. I wouldn't shout or cry. I would simply present the undeniable facts of their theft and ask them to look me in the eye and justify it one more time. But I know it would be pointless. They live in a reality they have constructed for themselves, a reality where their actions are not only justified, but noble. My brother's wedding is in 3 months. I received an invitation in the mail, forwarded from my old address. It was a thick, elegant cardstock, no doubt expensive. My mother had added a little handwritten note at the bottom. Please come. It would mean the world to all of us. Let's not let money come between family. The audacity of that sentence is breathtaking. Money didn't come between us. Their greed, their lies, and their theft of that money came between us. They still don't get it, or more likely they refuse to. Needless to say, I will not be attending. The thought of watching my brother celebrate his new life in the house that I paid for is more than I can stomach. I cannot stand in a room full of their friends and family, all of whom have likely been fed a sanitized version of the story, and pretend that everything is okay. I cannot toast to his happiness when it was purchased with my ruin. My absence will be my final statement. I have found a small apartment on the other side of town. It's nothing like the house. It's small, the walls are thin, and I can hear my neighbors at all hours. But it's mine. My name is on the lease. My key is the only one that opens the door. There is a strange, painful comfort in that. The security I thought I was buying with my parents was a mirage. The only security, I'm learning, is the one you build for yourself, with legal contracts and a healthy dose of suspicion. The financial planning I had done for my future is now a pile of useless paper. My retirement goals, my plans for long-term investment, all of it was predicated on the equity I was building in that house. Now, I am so far behind it feels like I am running a race that I have already lost. I see people my age, and they are moving forward, and I am stuck trying to claw my way back to the starting line that I was at 8 years ago. It is a profoundly demoralizing feeling. I wonder if my brother ever feels a moment of guilt. Does he walk through the rooms of that house and see the kitchen I remodeled? Does he enjoy the garden I planted? Or is his conscience completely clear? I suspect it's the latter. He has been conditioned his entire life to believe that he is deserving of anything and everything he desires, and that the world, and specifically our family, will bend to provide it for him. He is not the architect of this betrayal, but he is its willing and primary beneficiary. My parents destroyed my ability to see them as my family. Now they are just 2 people with whom I share some DNA. They are business partners who defaulted on a deal in the most personal way imaginable. The love I felt for them has curdled into something cold and heavy, a mixture of pity and contempt. They are not the giants of my childhood anymore. I see them now as they are, weak, deceitful people who were willing to sacrifice one child for the comfort of another. This whole experience has taught me a brutal lesson about the intersection of love and money. I used to think they were separate, that family love was unconditional and transcended material things. I was wrong. For my parents, money was the ultimate tool to express their preference. It wasn't just about giving Mark a house. It was about making a definitive statement about our respective values in their eyes. He was worth the investment, and I was worth the sacrifice. It's that simple and that cruel. I find myself obsessively looking at real estate listings online, torturing myself with the prices of homes in the area. I see what my $80,000 plus 8 years of appreciation would be worth now. The number is staggering. It's not just the initial sum they took. They stole all of its potential growth. They didn't just steal from my past. They stole from my future, a future that is now significantly more difficult and uncertain because of their choices. The trust I had in family has been replaced by a hardened wall of self-preservation. I will never again enter into a financial agreement with anyone without a contract written by a lawyer I hired myself. I will never again assume that someone has my best interests at heart simply because they are related to me. These are painful lessons to learn, and I am paying a very high price for this education. The tuition was my entire life savings and the family I thought I knew. I often think about the little things, the Sunday barbecues we used to have in the backyard that I built, the Christmas mornings in the living room that I painted. All those memories are now tainted. They feel like scenes from a play where I was the only actor who didn't know the script. I was performing the role of the happy, contributing son, while everyone else was waiting for the final act where I would be unceremoniously written out of the story. The hardest days are the quiet ones, when the rage subsides and all that is left is a profound sense of sadness. Sadness for the boy who trusted his parents implicitly, sadness for the man who believed his hard work would pay off, and sadness for the fact that no matter what I do, I can never get that time or that trust back. The money is gone, but the scar from the betrayal will be with me forever. It has reshaped my view of the world in a fundamental way. I'm trying to find a path forward. I am doubling down at work, picking up extra projects, trying to start rebuilding my savings from scratch. It's a daunting mountain to climb. Some days I feel motivated, fueled by a desire to prove them wrong, to show them that I can succeed without them. Other days, I feel exhausted and defeated, wondering what the point is. The finish line seems so far away now, and the race is so much lonelier than it was before. The core of the problem, the part I keep coming back to, is that they genuinely believe they did nothing wrong. In their minds, they were simply being good parents to my brother. My financial stability was the resource that enabled their generosity. They don't see it as a theft, they see it as a redistribution of family assets. This complete lack of moral accountability is perhaps the most terrifying part of the entire ordeal. How do you argue with people who cannot even recognize the harm they have caused? I've started a log of every expense related to that house that I can remember. Every can of paint, every contractor's bill, every appliance I ever bought. It's a painful exercise, but I need to see the numbers in black and white. I need a tangible record of what was taken from me. It's not for a lawyer or a courtroom. It's for me. It is my private testament to the truth, a reminder that I am not crazy, that what happened was real and deeply unjust. What do you do when the villains of your story are your own parents? You can't escape them. They are a part of your history, your biology. I see my father's face in the mirror sometimes and I flinch. I hear my mother's turn of phrase in my own voice and it makes my skin crawl. This betrayal isn't just an external event. It's an internal one too. It's a poison that has seeped into my own identity, and I don't know how to get it out. The loneliness is the worst part. I feel like I am on an island. My friends are supportive, but they can't truly understand. They offer sympathy and tell me my family is awful, but they come from normal, loving homes. They don't understand the specific kind of grief that comes from being financially and emotionally gutted by the people who were supposed to be your ultimate safety net. It's a unique and isolating kind of pain. My goal now is simple: survival. I need to survive this financially and emotionally. I need to build a life for myself that is so full and independent that their actions become a footnote, not the defining chapter. I don't know if I will ever get there, but I have to try. It's the only thing I can do. The alternative is to let them win, to let their betrayal define the rest of my life, and I refuse to give them that satisfaction. So here I am in my small apartment, typing this out to strangers on the internet. I'm putting my story out into the void, hoping for, I'm not even sure what. Validation maybe, advice, or maybe just the simple knowledge that someone out there has read my story and understands. Was this ever about family, or was I just a long-term financial plan for my brother's future? I feel like I already know the answer,